Hi, this is Emma, and welcome to Esoteric Detective. The hum is a worldwide phenomenon only about 2% of the population is able to hear. It is described as a low humming noise between 30 and 40 Hz. Many people who can hear the hum live in the countryside and say it is often louder at night and on weekends. Sometimes they experience vibrations, nosebleeds, headaches, and sometimes even diarrhea. There are at least 3 suicides linked to the hum to this date. The hum, reportedly, cannot be drowned out or recorded with an electronic device. But what is the hum, and what is causing it? Stay tuned, as Esoteric Detective investigates 5 things we know about the mysterious hum. Number 5. It's not clear when the hum first began, or when people started noticing it, but first made its way to national media attention in the 1970s, when newspapers started receiving hundreds of reports, when they followed up on an isolated article into those suffering with the hum. Hundreds of letters came into the newspapers in reply to the report, which described the hum as the sound of an idling diesel engine, mostly audible at night, mostly noticeable indoors. The hum itself has not seemed to change since the 1970s, with many reporting a similar sound. Let's take a look.
I actually heard the hum myself, and it is weird. It's a very, very weird, low, bassy humming sound that's there.
Could you give us a sense of what it sounds like?
Yeah, I'll try my hardest for you. It's like a it's that sort of a sound.
On Sunday it was at its peak and it was vibrating, you could feel it through your body. And then it starts to die down again and then you feel it building up again.
It's like the village has been cut in half. This end doesn't seem to experience anything, but from midway downwards, the further down the village you go, it seems to be more and more.
Moved here within the first few months. I just woke up in the middle of the night and heard this strong humming sound, kind of like a just a steady hum. I'm not sure of the exact pitch, it's kind of low. Not unlike a refrigerator sounds.
Like a rumble of thunder in the distance, like a distant storm. That's one of the sounds. And sometimes it's just like a pulsation where the sound will come and you'll feel it coming in waves, and you'll get that sort of popping, that pressure in your ear. When I go to the West End, it's terrible. It is at its worst. If I get out of the car and I head somewhere over there, oh my gosh, the ear pressure is unbelievable. Ear pressure, head pressure, and like I'll run inside the building of where I've got to go. It's that loud. It's bizarre.
I've even described it as a fleet of diesel engines idling next to your home. And you get that revving feeling, you get that bass feeling, you get that pulsing noise, and it's very ominous. And that is enough to wake you up, and it's a very obvious noise.
Scientists have been left baffled because they can't figure out what causes the phenomenon called the hum, or why it affects so few people. But it is clear by the factors that the humming is nearly always only heard indoors, and at night, that it is something that is being picked up by people, and not something that is imaginary. This was confirmed by Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge in the 1990s, through a study into the hum, and can be further corroborated by the fact that a similar sound is described by different people, clustered around certain locations around the world. People that are unconnected. A 2003 study by acoustical consultant Jeff Levendahl, from Surrey, shows that 1 in 50 people who live in a hum-prone place hear the noise, and that most of these people are aged between 55 and 70. In the UK, the noise has been heard in Leeds, Bristol, and Largs, Scotland. It has also been reported as far as Taos, New Mexico, and Bondi Beach in Sydney, as well as Auckland, New Zealand, along with many other places throughout the world. Katie Jack, from Leeds, told the BBC it's a kind of torture. Sometimes, you just want to scream. It's hard to get off to sleep because I hear this throbbing sound in the background. You're tossing and turning, and you get more and more agitated about it. Those who hear it can experience headaches, nausea, dizziness, nosebleeds and sleep disturbances. Number 3. Some researchers have blamed the hum on the pressure of the waves on the seafloor. Dr. Fabrice Ardhuin, a senior research scientist at the Center of National Research and Science in France, put forth the hypothesis that seismic waves that cause the Earth to oscillate are the cause of the hum, and that sensitive people are picking this up. This might explain why people that move away from the locations are usually given relief from the hum. The continuous waves produce sounds lasting from 13 to 300 seconds. They can be heard by a relatively small proportion of people, says Dr. Fabrice Ardhuin, who are sensitive to the hums. But other researchers state that this does not make any sense, since if the small portion of the population that hear the hum would have described it throughout history, given the large volumes of human civilizations that have lived in coastal locations. Number 2. One of the most unusual theories on what is causing the hum, at least with more esoteric researchers, is that it is some kind of advanced technology used by Western governments to subdue populations. That is, something that changes our biology and is used as a control mechanism, but is only picked up by a small part of the population. Evidence for this is given by the fact that the hum is only reported, mostly in Western societies. However, any true evidence linking the hum to mind control, apart from the rising rates of depression, anxiety, general mental illness within the Western populations, within the last 50 years, is thin at best. The only evidence that it could be some kind of mind control device is from the people who hear the hum, of which many sufferers believe is some kind of mind control device that is messing with their minds. But would a government really experiment on its people? Although the evidence for the hum being a mind control device is anecdotal, evidence that governments conspire to experiment on its people is solid and has a long history. For instance, you can take water fluoridation for example, which even though it has been proved by leading and esteemed university research teams that fluoridation of the water causes illness within the populations and lowers intelligence levels in children, still has not been removed from Western water supplies. Another example, much more documented by the government's own documents, is the chemical warfare experiments on poor populations within the United States. This occurred in Missouri for decades, where Army scientists secretly sprayed St. Louis with radioactive particles for years to test chemical warfare technology. Let's take a look.
This next story is so unbelievable, we didn't think it could possibly be true. But after receiving thousands of records and declassified reports from the Army, it's confirmed that during the Cold War, the United States military conducted secret tests on unsuspecting people in the city of St. Louis. A local sociologist will make her findings public tomorrow, but she spoke first to the I-Team's Lisa Zigman.
Lisa Martino Taylor's life work has been to uncover details of the Army's ultra-secret military experiments carried out in St. Louis and other cities during the 1950s and 60s.
This study was secretive for a reason. They didn't have volunteers stepping up and saying, yeah, I'll breathe zinc cadmium sulfide with radioactive particles.
These Army archive pictures show how the tests were done in Corpus Christi, Texas in the 1960s. In Texas, planes were used to drop the chemical, but in St. Louis, the Army placed chemical sprayers on buildings and station wagons. City officials were kept in the dark about the tests. The Cold War cover story was that the Army was testing smoke screens to protect cities from a Russian attack. The truth, according to Martino Taylor, was much more sinister.
It's pretty shocking. The level of duplicity and secrecy, clearly they went to great lengths to deceive people.
By making hundreds of Freedom of Information Act requests, she uncovered once classified documents that confirm the spraying of zinc cadmium sulfide. The greatest concentration of this compound was sprayed near the Pruitt-Igoe housing complex just south of downtown St. Louis. It was home to 10,000 low-income people, and an estimated 70% were under the age of 12. Martino Taylor claims they all unknowingly inhaled this compound morning, noon, and night so the government could measure its effects on their lungs.
So this was in violation of all medical ethics, all international codes, and the military's own policy at that time.
In 1994, then Congressman Richard Gephardt asked the Army to open its records and explain the St. Louis testing.
We want to make very sure that nothing went on that would harm anyone and that all the facts are out on the table.
Documents released in the 90s show the Army placed sprayers on this former Knights of Columbus building on Lindell and in Forest Park. The Army always insisted the chemical compound was safe. Martino Taylor believes documents prove otherwise.
There's a lot of evidence that indicates that people in St. Louis, in the city, particularly in minority communities, were subjected to military tests that was connected to a larger radiological weapons development and testing project.
For the first time, she links the St. Louis testing to a company called U.S. Radium, a company notorious for lawsuits involving radioactive contamination of its workers.
United States Radium had this reputation where they had been found legally liable decades prior for producing a radioactive powdered paint that killed many young women who painted fluorescent watch dials.
While the Army admits it added a fluorescent substance to the zinc cadmium compound, details of whether it was radioactive remain secret. Documents uncovered to date indicate the Army never conducted follow-up studies to see whether the compound caused long-term health issues. In 1972, after years of crime, poverty, and decline, the government destroyed the Pruitt-Igoe housing complex. Lisa Zigman, News Channel 5, I-Team.
Now, the company U.S. Radium no longer exists. Martino Taylor has placed all of her research, including the declassified documents, online and will link you to that data at ksdk.com. Now, she will make all of her findings public tomorrow at St. Louis Community College Merrimack campus. In the meantime, if you remember the spraying, the I-Team's Lisa Zigman would like to hear from you. You can email her at lzigman@ksdk.com.
Number 1. We know that high and low frequencies affect people, both their mental state and their biology. This is shown in the new studies which show the link between cell phone exposure and cancer, which uses high frequencies. But there are a number of studies that show the link between low frequencies and changes to the environment. One example is of the military experimenting with extremely low-frequency communications. The project called Project Sanguine was an ELF station, which was used as a way of sending low-frequency waves of coded messages to United States and British Trident submarines. It started in 1968 and was active in 1989. The antennas that were actually built used about 6 acres of land, and the one in Wisconsin, deep in the Chequamegon National Forest, about 2 acres. Due to its low frequency, the antenna systems has to be huge. It generated electromagnetic waves at 76 Hz, has a wavelength of 2,452 miles. The system worked. But later Michigan Technological University, School of Forestry and Wood Products, found that the ELF antenna also made the trees grow faster around it, thereby giving concrete evidence that the effects of the ELF array caused significant changes in the natural environment. The question is, if there is another project, that predated the Project Sanguine? What are its effects on the population of the Western world? And is it used for some kind of communications station, or something far more sinister? What do you guys think? Do you think that the hum is something that the governments are using? Or maybe another unknown esoteric force? Or do you think it is a natural phenomena that has been around as long as the Earth? Stay tuned and subscribe to Esoteric Detective to keep up to date with the strange and unusual. And please give a thumbs up if you liked the video. And do let me know what you think in the comments section. Until next time.
Destruction of your soul, mind control, it's mind control, corruption of your thoughts, destruction of your soul.